y'all, it's Dedra with another episode of Ink and Overalls. I'm so happy you could join me here today. If you're new here, my name is Dedra. I'll be your host. I live in South Mississippi on a small homestead with my husband, Eric, and our 4 kids. And I love to talk all things homesteading, so here we are. We're going to be discussing some more things today. We've already been diving into some fun topics, and I think this is episode 4, I believe. So we're rolling. We're on our way. Before I jump in, I just want to let you know that it really does help so much whenever you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're sharing things on Facebook, it all helps so much. And also, if you're listening on an audio platform like Apple Podcast or anything like that, leaving us a review would be amazing because those things really help so much. So all of that, just thank you so much for what you've done, and I just hope that you'll continue to keep us in mind with your shares and your watch time. And I just appreciate everybody who's joined us so far. So I'm going to start a little series today I'm calling the Why series, WHY, why. Because I spoke a lot, and I will, because I think it's extremely important. I talk about your why. Like, why are you doing the things you do? What makes us homestead? Like, when I'm usually discussing it, I'm talking about it from that perspective. So why? Why do we do these things that are different than other people? Why do we sometimes choose what appears to be the harder road, in the scheme of things? Why do we do it? And it's different for everybody. I'm going to discuss mine, but I'm discussing this in the hopes that you will feel encouraged to figure out your own why, and that you can carry that with you whenever times get rough, or whenever you start doubting, or whenever you hit a roadblock, or whatever you come in contact with, because it's just really important. And sometimes it's a lot more simple than we think it is. We go into homesteading for one reason, and then we kind of realize we get something else out of it altogether. So I'm going to break down the different things that I do around here in episodes. So today, my why is covering, why do I garden? The importance of growing something lovely and finding beauty in the garden. Now, I'm going to break it down piece by piece. So one question I ask myself a lot of times, especially when it's hot and I'm tired and I'm working and, things are like shriveling up in the garden, or I'm hitting a roadblock with something, or my life gets crazy. It's like, why do I do this? Why am I gardening right now? And it's definitely not because it's easy, okay? And one thing that we think sometimes is, okay, so is it to save money at the grocery store? Heck no. Because chances are, especially if you have a small kitchen garden, like, your chances of offsetting your grocery bill are really, that's not a reason to go into it, okay? What about food security? Having a food source. Now that's a great idea. That's a great reason, okay? But while I feel I'm acquiring necessary skills and valuable skills that could end up being very useful in certain situations, that's personally still not my why. Now, I do believe skills are important. And, I know for some people that their driving force is, food security and things like that. And if that's what drives you and that gets it done and that's what brings you joy, that's great. But this episode is about my own personal why. And like I said, a challenge for you to figure out yours as well. So by gardening, on the obvious side of things, yes, I'm gaining skills that I can grow food for my family if we ever needed it, like dire need, like I could do it. And in the process, I'm able to provide my family with a higher quality of produce. I'm able to grow herbs for medicinal purposes, things that I use in my business. But where I am, so for example, I don't have a row garden on like an acre or more that produces like oodles of food for the year. Okay. That's not what I'm able to do here. And a lot of us aren't. But now that does not take away the value of gardening, but it does kind of sometimes interpret a little bit of what our why ends up being. Okay. While being able to do a larger garden, of course, if I ever had access to the land to do it, I would. Whenever I have access to local places, like you pick places, I enjoy doing that. But as far as like what I do here, while all that's admirable and really cool, I have more of a kitchen garden. And I'll explain to you like kind of what that means. As far as what I talked about, okay, so when I talked about community in the third episode, I think it was, I talked about the Victory Garden movement of World War II and how that affected the food system in America. And I tie that into community in that aspect. But what I'm talking about whenever I talk about those Victory Gardens, a lot of those were smaller gardens in kind of off the wall places, like they may be in a vacant lot or they may be just on the little corner of a building somewhere, because people were growing wherever they could. And most of those were what I would consider kitchen gardens. Now, historically, kitchen gardens, you can trace them all the way back to like the Roman Empire. And what they've always kind of been is a source of food close enough that like the cook could run out and get what they needed to come back in and prepare meals. And so what you're looking at whenever you have a kitchen garden type thing, you're looking at providing things and growing things that will supplement your meals like year round. And so it's kind of a constant growing thing versus like growing a whole bunch of one thing to preserve. Okay. Now that doesn't mean that I can't, because I do. Like I grow enough tomatoes every year to make salsa for my family and have extra, because I love salsa, and that's something I cannot personally buy at the grocery store that tastes as good as what I can make. So I'm able to do that. I could easily, enough of my space to put up green beans for my family. I have done pickles. I can preserve from my garden, okay? And also herbs, like culinary herbs and medicinal herbs. The space that those things take up is extremely worth it, because when it comes to bang for your buck, those herbs are going to like enhance your cooking, and they're expensive on the shelves. But also from a medicinal standpoint, you can do so much with them, and that, they end up being extremely valuable. So the kitchen garden in itself, it may not be what you picture when you think of a huge garden, but it's what I have and it's what I love, because I think there's so much beauty to it. You often have pollinator like flowers and things like that growing alongside of herbs and vegetables and all these things. It's just like a plethora of all these things living together. And that's the kind of gardening that I love to do. So from a practical standpoint, I'm learning the useful skill of growing food. I'm able to provide fresh produce for my family, and it's a beautiful space to be in. So beginning with those things, those are like my whys right up front. So whenever because I walk in my garden and it's a lovely place, I love it. It's wild and it's free and it's gorgeous, and I like being there. And that, of course, results in me being in there more often. And then on top of that, the produce, the harvest from it is always a good thing, But once again, that's usually not enough of a why for me personally whenever it's 100 degrees outside and the grocery store is selling tomatoes for $2 a pound. I'm not going to lie to you. Because, I can remember a day back, I think it was in 2019, we were still using the front garden, which we're revamping now. I have to tell y'all the story someday of how we're repurposing, like how we are rejuvenating that land, regenerating it from what it had become. But anyway, we were attempting an in-ground garden out there. This is before I had my raised beds. But I was doing garden work, and I was out there by myself, and I just kind of really literally just kind of asked God, because I talk to him a lot when I'm out there and any other time really. But I just said, why am I doing this? Like, why? Why am I standing here working in the heat when I could be chilling out doing something else? Like, I know that I'm enjoying it, but why? And I almost, and y'all, depending on what you believe in, it may sound crazy to you, and that's fine, but just, I personally know what I experienced, and that was almost an audible voice just kind of say, does it bring you closer to me? And I knew that was like the Holy Spirit, it was God talking to me, and my answer, of course, was yes, because I feel so connected personally. Whenever I'm in nature, when I'm out there, when I can see creation, and I can learn so much about the nature of God through those things. So my answer was yes immediately. And then I heard a reply, and that reply was, that's enough. And so for me personally, at that point, I began to understand, and it's been an evolving idea, that for me personally, it doesn't, like, just putting food on the table is not a big enough why for me right now. Okay. Now, if I ever had to do it, I could do it. And I do put, there is a harvest, but the physical harvest is a smaller part of what I'm doing, because the harvest that I get, I don't know if I would say spiritually, emotionally, everything, is just far outweighs anything that you could put in a basket. Okay. So for me, that's enough. Like I said, I want fresh produce and herbs and flowers, but I garden for lots of reasons. And I'm about to get a little bit poetic, and I'm going to be reading some stuff I wrote down because I don't want to skip over anything I wanted to say. So here's my why. Okay. I garden because God placed Adam and Eve in a garden at the beginning of mankind, and that wasn't accidental. I garden because it ties me to the seasons and the weather, to nature and its processes. It shows me and reminds me that there's truly a reason for everything. Just as Ecclesiastes 3 says, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted. I garden because I want my children to have a memory of their mama working in the sunshine in a straw hat and overalls. I garden because watching seedlings sprout is a constant reminder of renewal and determination to grow. There have been times that I have planted things and sort of forgotten about them and neglected them, only to find that they've grown anyway. So I garden because it has taught me to sow in faith and watch God provide the increase. I always say that gardening is proof that I must be an optimist at heart, because I would have given up a long time ago if I wasn't. To keep doing the same thing every year and knowing that nature and forces outside of your control have a lot to do with the results you get, that's something that kind of takes a little bit of optimism to keep pursuing, because you are going to have years that are harder with certain bugs, or you're going to have a certain crop do better some years than others, and that's just the nature of it. But it's unpredictable, and I do really think that it reminds me that no matter what I say, I'm a bit of an optimist at heart. So like I said, you'll hear me get a bit poetic time and time again about this lifestyle. And it's not because it's perfect. You have a 0% chance of ever finding me in a pristine garden in a linen dress, like gathering something in this gorgeous basket with the wind blowing through my curls. Like 0% chance of that. But now you have a 100% chance of at times finding me in the garden blaring country music through a speaker or worship music through a speaker and digging in the dirt with sweaty, frizzy, messy bun and filthy overalls. You're going to find that. You have a 100% chance of finding me at some point quietly walking through and listening to an audiobook or just talking to God. I garden because I find myself there. In the chaos and the constant to-do list, I feel like it makes me the best version of myself. Now, do I judge you if you have zero intention of ever homesteading or growing anything? Absolutely not. But now, do I believe wholeheartedly that everyone could learn something about themselves and about our Creator by pursuing a little time outside, digging in the dirt? Absolutely. I believe that. Absolutely. Like I said, I know it's not for everybody, but I absolutely believe that you could completely change your perspective on some things just by getting out there and digging in the dirt. Now, I speak, and this is not something, I'm not going to make this all about this or anything, but on a very personal level, I do struggle with anxiety and depression. I wish I didn't. I wish that I was free from that. And I am free from it through some, through learning how to work with it and through things I've learned that work for me. And yes, I take medication for that. I'm not going to lie about that. I wish I could control it all naturally, but I can't right now. But now what I do see is I see the difference that it makes in my everyday life to have things that rely on me out there, whether that's my animals or my garden or whatever it is. Just getting out in nature and being out there is such a switch in my brain. And it's from the sunshine and moving my body and being in creation and all of those things combined. Yes, it's part of my why that I feel gardening helps me with my mental health. So I'm going to I'm going to throw that out there because it could be the same for you. It may be already the same for you, but you're not alone if you struggle and you need like things to look forward to. You need things that are maybe not always the same, things that change. And sometimes the garden can offer you that. The garden kind of offers you a place that it can kind of be yours. And It's quiet, and it's just a peaceful place. And it's a good reason to get out and get your vitamin D, get your body moving, and just enjoy time in God's creation. So for me on a personal level, the answer to why I garden, as you've seen through all this, has very little to do with a harvest that I can actually fit inside of a harvest basket. I find the main fruits end up being the lessons that I learn and the way I'm stretched, challenged, and surprised by my garden. I challenge you to find your why. Hold on to that whenever you doubt or find yourself doubting your journey. And that goes for everything, not just homesteading. If your why isn't big enough, the task at hand is going to be far more tedious. And that goes, like I said, with anything you're doing. Why are you doing it? What does it bring to your life? What is it doing to grow you, stretch you? Is you finding joy in it? Like, know your why. So I hope that you do feel encouraged and maybe a little challenged to ask yourself to really define in your mind or on paper, however you want to do it, your why. I'm happy that I have this video now to really remind me of mine whenever the garden is not really the place that I'm feeling at that moment. I can remind myself why I do it and just have a record of why. Write it on your heart, write it on paper, however, but just remember it. And it goes, like I said, it goes for everything, not just homesteading, not just gardening. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me. I hope that you'll like, share, subscribe, all the things. Find me on Wally Media Group on YouTube at 7 p.m. on Wednesdays, that's Central Standard Time. And on Sundays, I upload to podcast platforms. I'm on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, most of those, more like iHeartRadio, all of those. I'm on there. And like I said, I upload there on Sundays. And follow me on my social medias. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Streamwater Farm across the board. And then inkandoveralls.com is my website, and you can go there. You can find merch there. You can find podcast episodes, and you can also read a little bit more about my family and link to my shop where I sell my goat's milk soaps, shampoos, herbal salves, tinctures, all those sorts of things. So until I see you next time, I hope that you'll find the beauty wherever you are, and I hope that you'll have a great day. Thank you.